This is your Chargers linebacker, Deion Henley, and you're tuning in with Chargers Unleashed.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. If this is your first time tuning in the show, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Happy Sunday night to everyone who is tuning in wherever you are. Happy to see all of you. We are officially closing out the second week of Chargers training camp. And of course, gearing up in just a couple of days, the Hall of Fame game, the kickoff to the preseason, Chargers versus the Lions. But Dan Wolkenstein, earlier today, we got some very, very good breaking news that everybody has been waiting for. Question has been out there wondering what is taking place with Rashawn Slater. Well, we don't have to worry about that for another 4 years because Rashawn Slater just signed a 4-year, $114 million deal to lock him up with the Chargers. I said earlier, Dan, on the short, that probably the next person that's possibly more happier than Rashawn Slater is the guy who he's protecting in Justin Herbert. Happy to see all of you. Dan Wolkenstein, did you clear out whatever it is you had? Was it a sneeze? You guys couldn't see it, but literally as the countdown was going on to start the show, Dan Wolkenstein either sneezed or had something in his throat. It was a question of whether or not he was going to make it to the beginning of the clock. So
it sneeze. It never fails. Like right as the clock is counting down, you get to like 5 seconds, sneeze attack, and I'm like, oh god, what am I gonna do? I gotta get out of the way here. But thankfully Jake made up for it. We are live on a Sunday night, 5:35 Pacific time. Jake mentioned it, 4-year, 114, a nice chunk of change, the highest paid left tackle in the biz. Feels great. Chargers have arguably, and I don't even think it's close, the best tackle pairing in the NFL, in my opinion. And
it's up there.
You know, there's a lot of question marks as we near the Hall of Fame game. But I think now with Rashawn Slater now in the review mirror, that extension, in my opinion, all eyes are now on who is going to be next to him and next to that guy.
Yeah.
And then you see Greg Roman comments and everyone starts to perk their ears a little bit. And Jake, this takes me back to like 3 months ago. Whenever Andre James signed, and there was, I'm going to find it while we're on this live show, the slide of the 5 who we thought were going to be the starting 5. And Andre James was there. Didn't look like it for a while, but now here we are. And we are close. Najee Harris is seen now on the field a bit with glasses and sweatpants, metaphorically. But lots to talk about. Live shows, we love these. These are so much fun. You guys know the drill. If you're new to this and you don't know the drill, well, first off, hit the like and subscribe. Helps us out a ton. Second, comment in the chat. Any thoughts, questions, topics, things you want to discuss, what you're eating, what you're drinking, whatever you want to talk about. And we'll do our best to weave those topics in as we continue this live show today. We're going to be going till about 6:45 Pacific time. So you guys, for a little over an hour here. Robert D, Jake, Kool-Aid. And it's not Spike. It is Sunday. We got to be responsible. A lot of people have work on Monday. Jake, important to-dos. None so more important than asking you, great friends, how are you feeling today? Probably a little better now after this Rashawn news.
It's been a good weekend overall, a good week of training camp. We'll have lots to get into to dissect because there's been a lot of players that have stepped up on both sides of the ball. I've loved what I have seen from the cornerback battle that has taken place over the last week. The wide receiver group continues to step up, whether you're, Quentin Johnson, who's caught, 6 touchdowns in 7 or 8 practices, or your Darius Davis yesterday, who's catching 3 touchdown passes during practice. I know that puts a big smile on Dan Wolkenstein's face for sure, but there's a lot to get into. I mean, again, we're 4 days away from camp. The Chargers get an extra preseason game this year. You can't, there's no way you cannot be hyped for the return of football and to have this be the game that kicks it all off. So excited to get into it. As Dan said, put all your comments in the chat. We will do our best to answer them over the next hour and 15 minutes. Also, if you guys want to get really saucy, go ahead and call the Chargers hotline. Dan Wolkenstein is capable of opening that up and taking your calls live here on the show for whatever message you would like to leave on a Sunday night.
Could be fun.
It's always fun. It's always fun. Everybody loves Bob from Boston whenever he calls into the Chargers Unleashed hotline. So let's make it fun.
Let's try it. Jake, so I think that we have to kick this thing off with the Rashawn Slater news, impact, and kind of what's next, I think. And you and I both have been on record for months. Like, I had 0% concern that this was getting done. And I know a lot of people were wanting it done. A lot of people were getting antsy, and we're hoping, right, that this was done earlier. And we're thinking, oh, what if he holds that? All that stuff. No, he's staying. And it is fitting that in the 2 years that Jim Harbaugh is here, which we haven't even started the second season yet, drafts Joe Alt, who arguably can be one of the top 5 all pro caliber players. You've heard the offensive coaching staff talk a bunch about how this guy's improved from year 1 to year 2. And then ho-hum Rashawn Slater, second team all pro as a rookie, 2-time Pro Bowler. Honestly, last year was maybe a down year, and it was still better than 90% of the tackles in the league. So for a Jim Harbaugh-led team in back-to-back years, securing Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater long-term, and bringing in Mekhi Becton, that says a lot about the tip of the spear mentality, and also what it means to have Justin Herbert protected. And I think that should not go unnoticed here. You hear a lot of the noise outside of LA, outside of Chargers beat reporters of, maybe Justin Herbert isn't appreciated. And, well, could they trade for so-and-so? Like all this stupidity, right? Like, and that's what it is. Anyone who has followed this Chargers team knows the single biggest reason why Jim Harbaugh came to this Chargers organization is because of number 10 under center. And now he is protecting him with 2 bona fide superstar tackles for the long term. And now, really, the biggest question mark, honestly, is going to be who's going to be center and left guard.
Before I comment on the Rashawn Slater things, to Ricardo, first of all, you're bringing back the Darkwing Duck flashbacks for me. Great cartoon back in the day. So love that. Second of all, Rashawn Slater. Dan, I asked him last year when we were down in San Diego for the mini fan fest that had Cornelius Johnson at the time, Alohi Gilman showed up, and Rashawn Slater was there. And I asked him, I said, hey, you're out here, you're putting pen to paper for a lot of these signatures on jerseys and photographs and, taking pictures. Any chance a signature on another piece of paper is in your immediate future? And honest to God, Rashawn Slater has just handled it in the most professional, quiet way possible.
Yep.
He has made his intentions known that he himself had confidence that the deal was going to get done. He made his intentions known that he wanted to stay with this team. And as you mentioned, Dan, it's fitting when you have a head coach like Jim Harbaugh, who talks about offensive linemen as tip of the spear, as weapons, as how vital they are. And you've seen how long this Chargers team has been looking for a left tackle before Rashawn Slater was drafted. They don't grow on trees. The elite ones do not grow on trees. So there was no way that the Chargers were going to allow Rashawn Slater to walk out of that building. And like I said, there's probably nobody that's more happy right now than Justin Herbert to have Rashawn Slater there for the next 4 years protecting his blind side.
Carlos Charger says, Chargers football is finally upon us. We got a football game this week. Who's we playing? Great question. I think they're still trying to determine, at least publicly, if they're going to be starters playing. I know there's a question in the comments asking about that. We don't know. I would imagine if folks are fighting for a spot, they will be playing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean fighting for like a starting spot, but they're trying to fight for a spot on this team, whether that's a spot at wide receiver 3, trying to take a spot for CB 1, 2, 3, right? Like no one's trying to take a spot for safety 1 or safety 2 for that matter on this team, or safety 3 for that matter on this team. No one's fighting for a spot at left tackle 1 or right tackle 1. Like, I doubt we're going to see much of them, if at all. QB1's pretty locked. But that's kind of where I would put it, Jake. Like, I think that's probably a good question to start, too. Like, moving forward to the preseason game coming, Hall of Fame, Chargers get an extra one. Like, what are your expectations? We'll get to the specifics and stuff this week as we kind of go through that. But just, like, overall expectations of that game. Like, what are you expecting to see in terms of, like, the types of players playing?
I think it's fortunate for the Chargers, especially this year. And when you look at certain position groups, whether we're talking about the running back spot, the wide receiver spot, the cornerback spot, interior defensive line, now you get an extra game to evaluate some of those extra spots. That's where you have the advantage. Now, as far as starters go, I don't expect to see them until at least the third game of the season. And things have changed over the last couple of years since, that you've gotten rid of one preseason game for a majority of the league. Obviously, the Chargers get the exception this year because they play in the Hall of Fame game. But that is when I would really expect them to play. So no Justin Herbert. I'll be interested to see what the offensive line looks like, especially after some of the comments that we heard from Greg Roman from after practice yesterday. So we'll see what that looks like. Excited to see what that running back room looks like, especially with certain guys not playing. You have Naheem Hines, who was recently signed. Let's see how that all shakes out. This wide receiver room has, I think just everybody kind of got the memo when it was announced that Mike Williams was retiring to say, okay, let's go out there. And as soon as your foot hits the ground, Quinn Johnson's making plays. Trey Harris is making plays. KLS is making some amazing plays out there on the field. And Darius Davis goes out yesterday during practice and catches 3 touchdowns. I am so looking forward to seeing how that competition goes. Cornerback room, though, Dan, that's the one that has my attention, because since the beginning of camp, you have seen virtually almost every corner has gotten an opportunity to have some shine in practice, whether it's still Dean Leonard's gotten a pick 6, Dante Jackson, Benjamin St. Juice,
Nico Reed.
Nico Reed has had 2 terrific back-to-back practices, having a pick 6 in one of them. Sear Taylor was named by Jesse Minter as one of the most improved players that he's seen from the end of last season to the beginning of this camp. Corner is the one that I'm really interested to watch here over these next 4 weeks.
Yeah, and I think I would add interior defensive line to that one too.
Yes.
And that's it's funny, as you were talking about the corners who have constantly made plays, same narrative could be said about the interior defensive line. You talked about like 6-7 deep that were making impact plays on the field this week. And this is in pads, so this actually matters, right? And names that you weren't necessarily expecting to hear. Tito is starting to make waves, starting to be playing with the ones. You're starting to see Justin Aboigbe hitting sticks, right? Like he's making impact plays as well. Naquan Hand, Deshaun Jones. You've got a bunch of dudes there that are making stuff happen. We're not even talking about the draft picks. We're not talking about Jamar Caldwell yet. So that interior defensive line can go so many different directions. And at this point, like, I don't know what I'd really be surprised by, because, and I was going to ask you this, and I kind of wanted to ask this to the chat. I don't know how to say this without being disrespectful, but that's not my intention. If every single interior defensive lineman is eating, does that say more about them or about who they're going up against? And I'm sure there's a little bit of both, but like, not everybody should be feasting.
Don't knock the coaching skills of one Mike Elston and the defensive coordinator mind of Jesse Minter. Just saying.
So are we just going to give praise to the defensive line and not question offensive line? I'm
not saying it's, I totally get where you're coming from here, because the interior, the offensive line, it's something that's been in flux.
That's been a concern.
Yes. And specifically at 2 positions, you're essentially rotating guys there every single practice. So I get that. But at the same time, you still got to go out and play. It's not like It's not like the defensive line is going up against a bunch of rookies. That's one thing that you know for sure.
Yeah. If you were to ask me, what would I rather have in training camp? And again, it's just training camp. We're just talking about practice. But if I had the choice of either the interior defensive line just wrecking shop and roasting the offensive line, or Justin Herbert protected, Najee Harris and Amari Hampton running wild, and offensive line stout, giving up nothing, like I would take the latter every single time. So it's a little concerning. Now, the news from Greg Roman, Andre James started to elevate his name. He's now firmly in that mix of possible options at center, which I find fascinating because he hasn't been the starting one in center with the ones ever, but somehow he's elevated himself. A little weird, suspicious in my opinion, but hey, whatever.
It's not just that, Dan. It literally took till yesterday in padded practice to have Zion actually take snaps at center.
Let alone Andre James. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yes, but first time for him since the pads came on. This was the first practice for Zion Johnson to be taking reps at center. All the other practices, Bradley Bozeman had 2 back-to-backs in practice, and before that, it was every rotation day that they had was the days where the pads came on was when Bradley Bozeman was taking the snaps at center. It wasn't Zion Johnson. Zion Johnson finally got his opportunity yesterday. There were some ups and there were some downs and some inconsistencies, which I'm sure is what raised eyebrows when Greg Roman finally put Andre James and the word start in the same sentence.
Everyone was like, oh.
Hey. Dan, I said, I've been saying it for months. It's one of 2 possibilities. Either the Chargers were going to be so adamant at making this experiment for Zion Johnson to make a switch to the center position, even though he's never played there before in his pro or his college career. And they were going to do everything that they can to make that work. Or it was going to be Andre James who ultimately won out the center position. I do not believe that we will see Bradley Bozeman back at center. I think you have already seen enough of that. And the Houston Texans game was the stamp. This is what I feel that come week 1. And trust me, my confidence was each day that we were just talking about it. It's like, okay, it's either Zion or Bradley at center. Zion or Bradley at center. It's like, damn, they're really just going to try to go over this because we haven't heard a peep on Andre James outside of anything with the second team. And then finally, I guess when Jim Harbaugh was talking about, that 8 to 10 day window in terms of making a decision on what was going to be taking place between Zion Johnson and Bradley Bozeman, maybe that decision was made just to add another name into the mix. And that being the one guy who's played some decent center over the last couple of years and done it through college and pro. And that's Mr. Andre James.
Yeah, literally, I think we had this slide created within a few days of Andre James being signed.
Yes.
To the Chargers. And full circle, here we are. Now, again, we're not at the point where Andre James has been named a starter, but this is what we thought would happen months ago. Now, the part that's interesting is the Zion Johnson versus Bradley Bozeman experiment at left guard. I think that, to me, is the more intriguing decision. Because if you were just to kind of look at the 2 performances so far in their careers, who's had the highest ceiling so far? Who's performed the better of the 2 at that position? And I think it's Bradley Bozeman. Does Zion Johnson may have more upside? Maybe. But who's done it the most consistently at left guard? It's probably Bozeman. So I'm curious, how long the leash is for whoever becomes the left guard before there's somebody breathing down their neck to replace him. And it should be, right? That water should be warm because that was unacceptable what we saw last year. Their words, not mine. But it's exciting to see that this coaching staff is recognizing what I think a lot of folks thought would be the case. Now, they might have recognized it with their own eyes versus what we just all assumed would happen based on what we've seen previously. But there's a question in the chat. Forgotten Locale says, was this decision to Andre James now being in the mix, was that because Andre James has shown out like Greg Roman has said? Or is it because they've left some things to be desired on the field, being Bradley Bozeman and Zion Johnson?
I think you can kind of read the tea leaves on the second half of this. One, I'll say that in terms of the centers that you had on the roster, in terms of what have you done for me lately, Andre James' record looked better than Bradley Bozeman's last year. And sorry, but it's still going to take some convincing to me that a Zion Johnson experiment for a player who has never played center in his life, when you have one who's been doing it since college, is the better option. Now, what I mean by the tea leaves is, as I was saying earlier, it took the Chargers almost 2 full weeks of practice to put Zion Johnson at center with the pads on. That to me is a little bit of a message in itself.
Being
it's not necessarily saying that it's not the best, in my opinion, that it took this long to get him to start playing. But hey, competitors welcome. You better add another name into that list in the rotation. I'm just saying that's it was shocking at first, for as much confidence as they were putting behind it, to see that it took them this long to have a rotation where Zion Johnson was at center with pads on.
Especially given the timeline that they were very public about.
Exactly.
Because they said, 9-10 days or something like that? 8 to 10 days? I mean,
that's when Jim Harbaugh said that he was going to have a decision made on that.
And doing it when you've had so far 1 day. That doesn't seem
in pads.
Promising. Yeah, I mean, that's what matters for the offensive lineman. I don't know. Something's fishy. Now, people are asking the question, Jake, about why would they even want Zion at center? So Ivan asked, can you explain why they want to move Zion to center? And people saying he's super smart, but his literal weakness is stunts and reading defenses. Now, Jake, I'll let you take the floor first.
I was just to say, I know we've talked about this a lot when we first started getting the comments from the coaching staff in the front office. They were going to try this with Zion Johnson. Remember, they did not end up picking up his 5th-year option. Like I said, I think that this coaching staff has all the confidence in the world for Zion Johnson, whether we're talking about him at center or whether we're talking about him at guard. Now, we can sit here and we can criticize that idea of Zion Johnson being at center. Why? Because we've never seen it before. So it's hard for us to wrap our heads around it. We're not in those offensive line meetings. We're not out there on the field every day seeing the development. Now, to Zion's credit, you can make an argument that he is more athletic than Bradley Bozeman or Andre James. You can make that argument.
No question.
But I think it's more so from the standpoint of this coaching staff wanting Zion to get every opportunity possible to come into this season and earn a second contract, whether that's him playing at center or left guard, whatever it takes to them. I think they have extremely high confidence in what Zion Johnson can do. He's going to have to, because this is a contract year for him. And whether it's at left guard or center, he's going to have to step up.
So I think and I was listening to you intently, and I think what I liked hearing from there is Zion is going to have to. But what is nice and kind of refreshing covering this team now and being a fan of him for so long prior to covering him, they actually have some contingency plans here now. Yes, it's very important to Zion for a second contract if he performs well. Historically, though, that would also be very important for the Chargers, or else they would be absolutely hosed. The Chargers now have some options if Zion doesn't work out at guard or center. Right? They can do the Bozeman route. They can go their rookie route that they've drafted in the 6th round. They have options, right? They got Jamari Sawyer as well, who's been supposedly very impressive so far. So, this is kind of a put up or shut up time for Zion, but not necessarily for the Chargers. Like, they have options, and I think that's what I like to see. I do believe, though, I agree with Casey, though. I think it's different when you're the center and you get to start the play, literally, versus when you're guarding, you're reacting to the start of the play. And so there's probably some cross-training hope, right? They can use those intelligence measures that he has from college, and like maybe this can all click if you get cross-train abilities. But to me, they don't put him at center if they were happy with him at guard. Period. With that in mind, to me, that's why I go back to like the left guard position, in my opinion, is kind of where I think you're going to see that. That's like the most intriguing to me, because Bozeman has been better than Zion Johnson has been throughout the course of a season. So just last year, like Jim Harbaugh's talked about multiple times, like the best predictor of success is previous success. They've told us what they are so many times. And so I think we got to believe them. Jake, talk to us about this contract by Rashawn Slater, but specifically how it freed up money for this Chargers team. Jake's on mute. Everyone, we're live.
Gotta love it. I think it ended up freeing up. So I think the Chargers, if I'm right, and someone please chime with the last time that I looked at it, I don't know if it's the final number on it, but with the adjustments, I think it was around that. There's $14 million that I think that the Chargers have in total cap space right now. And I think the projections for next year, I think it's around like $85 million that the Chargers could potentially have in free agency with the adjustments. But it's pretty nice. I think you ended up, I think it was total about like $5 million in cap space for adjustment that you got from this deal for Rashawn. So I think it was at 19, it lowered it to 14. And then next year, obviously it's going to kick up into the 20s.
His cap hit. Yes.
And and then the next year, I think I can't remember if it's in the low 30s or the high 20s again, but by the time it finishes, it's going to be in the 30s for his contract hit. Yeah.
But I think what folks are asking in the chat is like the cap space they have available now for this season to sign a free agent or 2 or 3 or whatever. They've got money to spend. They got like upwards of 30 plus, I think.
They've got money to spend. Again, we've gone down this road before. We saw what it was in free agency. We were having the same conversation then. Again, not saying that they won't, but here's where I think that you now have the potential to use this over the next 4 weeks or so. I think this is going to come into play. Let's just say if you have and again, this is just me speaking hypothetical, but in terms of what this cap money can be used for, because obviously you always keep a good amount for anything in terms of injuries that may happen during the season. But where that excess may come into play is, could you have an Elijah Molden moment the same time that you did last year once these cuts start coming down?
What position would you think that would be in?
I don't know. I'm just making a hypothetical. You could pick a variety of different positions here.
You piqued my interest here. Just I'm gonna pull that string for a second, Jake.
Okay.
So last year it was the safety position that I think a lot of us were like, we gotta fix. At this point in time, it feels like that is the guard center area of like the glaring things that everyone is like, this is the question mark, right? Like, could they improve other positions? Sure. Like, there's a lot of people in the chat talk about the Christian Wilkins thing. Like, talent on the field, yes, Christian Wilkins is better than a lot of these dudes, but it's not just on-field stuff. There's some weird rumors going out there from Raiders' side about some stuff with teammates. I don't know. So could that happen? Sure. Receivers, that's another one, potentially, right? Like, you're seeing these receivers kind of fight for their positions here, but like there's some guys out there still available. Free agency or trade. So I guess like aside from maybe receiver, guards, probably like a Scherf kind of thing, like what other positions would they go to that would be like, yeah, they need it? This is a testament to Joe Ortiz, by the way, because like that's a good thing.
I mean, you look at the roster right now, it's not much because one thing that the Chargers have done free agency this year and along with the draft, you have built up depth. So in terms of roster spots and building up the floor of each one of those respective positions, you can look at that roster and say, like I've seen a bunch of people in the chat right now saying it's like there are no weak spots on the team. And that's fair. You can make that argument. But you always see that surprise name that becomes available from 31 other teams that are out there that you know is going to be highly coveted 24 to 48 hours later when they end up clearing waivers. Mm-hmm. So it is we saw both situations play out for the Chargers last year, whether it's last minute waiver claims or a last minute trade before week 1. You keep those available as it stands right now. I don't think you see it as a big time play to say, okay, we've got this lump sum of money. Let's go out and see who else we can sign. Because the free agent pool isn't necessarily going to garner any huge contracts or huge interest. So it's nothing that's going to end up taking up a big sum of whatever the remaining cap that the Chargers have left. So I think you're bucketing it, obviously, for the season in terms of injuries. Maybe it's a trade situation that happens throughout the course of preseason, or maybe you just bank it for next year, or maybe you look to get another deal done throughout the season with somebody else that's going to be coming up on a contract year next season and get out ahead of the sticks for a change. Who knows? But we all expected Joe Ortiz with the loads of cash to spend it in a much different way than what he ended up spending it on, even though in retrospect, he ended up spending it pretty well.
I have a hard time believing they're just going to sit on the money. Like, I know Joe Ortiz has talked about being responsible with the cap. Like, I get that. But if they're as bullish and as aggressive about this season as they've said, like, I know we're all too familiar with the term all in, but like, I feel like there's some more chips to go in before you can even say that, right? Jorge says that the Chargers team needs some prisoners on the defense, some mean machine style. I'm not sure. Some people said freak in what way? Like R. Kelly?
Freak in one way.
Or like Dennis Rodman. I'm not sure.
I'll take the Dennis Rodman. I'll take the Dennis Rodman. Thank you.
Oh, man. And then there's some questions about Tyreek Hill. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Yeah, I think that there's too many free agents and there's too much time. We haven't seen one game yet. And usually that's when stuff starts to move.
Yeah.
So keep your eye out on like an Amari Cooper. Like, to me, that is like the one move that if you brought one like that who plays the position that you are probably without the most at receiver, I mean, he fits perfectly with what the Chargers team needs. To me, that's the name that I'm kind of watching. If you got folks asking for Henry Ruggs, we're not even 35 minutes in where people are asking for Henry Ruggs. Good Lord.
This is what not having football for so many months ends up doing to people. We're almost there.
Jorge asked Jake, who are you most excited to watch in the Hall of Fame game? And he says Quentin. Okay, so here's the thing. And I don't know if this is good or bad, but I think this is just fact. I don't think there's a damn thing that Quentin can do between now and week 1 to improve what anyone thinks of him. Unfortunately for him, like, it sucks, but that just seems to be the reality. No matter what he does, well, it will be lumped in the, well, show me when it matters. Show me at the end of the game. Show me on third down against the Chiefs. Show me in the playoffs, right? Like that goalpost will keep getting moved. right or wrong. And like, I get it. For me, the only thing that can happen with Quentin's reputation right now is it gets worse. He can make 10 touchdowns. Wouldn't matter. He'll drop one. That's what everybody talks about. And it sucks, right? Like, you don't want to root for someone's demise, but I think factually, publicly, not inside the building, publicly, I don't think anything will change, no matter how good Quentin does. Because you'll hear it. Oh, it's just against preseason opponents. It's not a real game. Doesn't matter. There's no pressure on him there. We already know it's coming, right? Like, I think at this point, Chargers fans, I would hope, are rooting for his success. Cheer him on when he does well. You could be critical when he doesn't. And take it as it comes. Like, honestly. And so, like, if you're excited to see Quentin, I hope that if he does well, you cheer him on and you give him praise. And if he doesn't, you can criticize him. So, Jake, to answer your question, or to his question, I'll ask you, what player or players are you most excited to see in this first game? Assuming that they play.
I'm really excited to see Trey Harris and KLS out there from all the buildup that we have seen from training camp practices thus far. You've heard Sanjay Lal talk about it. I think it was going back all the way to OTAs that they were still in a ramp-up period in terms of where they were at, because this was at a time when Quentin Johnson and Jalen Reagor were essentially your outside receivers. Latter was manning the slot. The progression that we have seen from them, albeit with the second team still in practice, is something to be encouraged by, especially for Trey Harris, who literally just, I mean, you talk about, going through all of that not signed deal with 30 other second round picks to hitting the ground running the very next day of camp and just not looking back. KLS is a 5th round rookie coming in and making some acrobatic catches, burning past DBs, making adjustments on catches. You love to see it. It's got to get you excited. Dan, I'm surprised that you did not take that opportunity to piggyback off the Quentin Johnston talk to say something about Oronde Gadsden.
Yep.
How could you not be excited about this young tight end?
I mean, I am. I'm very excited about this young tight end.
I mean, I think a lot of the players that we're excited to see are on the offensive side of the ball, but defensively, yeah, I'm excited to see what that rotation is with some of the defensive guys, specifically Justin Eboigbe. I want to see this leap that everybody's been talking about, considering the fact that he only played 26 snaps last year. Essentially, it was a redshirt year for him. I want to see how he does in there. I want to see how Jamari Caldwell is going to come into that game and how he's looked, and let's see what his progression's like. Because I've always kind of said, when you look at what this roster looks like, especially on the defensive line, you've got some guys that are, great at one thing, but not necessarily versatile enough to handle both. Jamari Caldwell, to me, and even Justin Eboigbe to an extent, can be one of those guys that could be versatile enough to play well against the run and be able to rush the quarterback. I think they both have that ability. Justin Eboigbe coming in from Alabama, you knew what his reputation was in terms of what he could do against the run. I think that Jesse Minter and co have been working on to say, hey, he's going to come into camp in better shape. We're going to get him quicker. We're going to get him after the quarterback. I think that has been their mission with him. That's why you've heard so much talk about him. And Dan, the battle at corner. Nico Reed, show me some more, baby.
I was going to say that was the name.
Love it. Nico Reed out of Oregon is, and especially now after the last 2 days of camp, I would love to see him make this final roster. It's an uphill battle with how many corners that you have to go against and who's going to be playing for some of those final spots, and ultimately how many do the Chargers keep. But I would love to see Nico Reed make this team in the next 4 weeks.
Yeah. So a couple names, I think Keandre Lambert-Smith for sure. Like that is a potential that would be a pretty game-changing shift for this roster if they can get someone with those playmaking abilities on the outside. Like that's something they have not had, and they have been trying to find and have been kind of force feeding that to Quentin to no avail so far. Really curious to see, and I don't know how much this will even be able to see during preseason games, but like you hear about the Darius Davis transformation and kind of him being utilized more and utilizing his speed and taking advantage of the opportunities. Could we see some of that? Like, what would that offense look like? Right? Like, that's a big one for me. Obviously, Oronde Gadsden, again, I've been on record. I think he's going to be this team's tight end one when it's all said and done. Not necessarily this season, but I think when you think of explosive, game-changing plays, game-breaking plays, I think Oronde Gadsden. When you think volume, I think Tyler Conklin. So I don't think he's going to be tight end one in terms of how many catches he gets. But I think in terms of SportsCenter top 10 plays worthy, I think that's Gadsden. I think the explosive, deep balls, that's going to be Gadsden over Conklin. But don't sleep on Conklin. Honestly, I'm excited to see how this left guard thing plays out. Like, I don't know how they're going to do this. Like, are they going to go game by game? Are they going to go half by half, quarter by quarter, series by series? Like, what's going to be the thing that brings one up versus one down? Like, how much release should they give? How many are they going to give? So many questions there. Jamari Caldwell, though, interior defensive line. I think that's going to be a fun one. I want to see him. Aboigbe, like hearing all the talk about him and his glow up. You hear the coaching staff talk about him being an impact player this year. That's big. That's big. And then maybe lastly, I'll go to some of the comments here. I think like the running back battle is a sneaky one. Like not necessarily Najee Harris or Martin Hampton. Like, yeah, I'd love to see them, like, of course, but like who's the odd man out of that group? And running back specifically is one of those positions where like one or two game breakers, like you could solidify your spot. I mean, ask Austin Eckler how he got on this team, right? Like started off special teams, but he couldn't get off the field. And there's some fun running backs to watch. So you hear Jared Patterson, Kamani Vidal starting to look more invigorated, getting better at pass pro. Rocket Sanders. Jake's on mute again.
Rocket Sanders needs to get on the field first. Somebody tell me why he's not practicing. Yeah, I need to see Rocket Sanders back out there. Do not have this be a situation where it's like, oh, he got hurt in between OTAs and training camp, and he's going to miss a bulk of training camp. Please do not let that be the case.
Going through,
you need to see Rocket Sanders out there.
Yeah. Going through some of the comments here, Jake. We got a lot of KLS hype. People want to see more KLS, rightly so. Oronde Gadsden is there as well. OG, Omarion. Yeah, a lot of people.
Dan, I'm going to reach back to one name that I had actually 1 year ago.
This one?
Not that one. Nope, not that one. No, that ultimately was in the same spot as some of these other undrafted free agents. Ultimately ended up making the team. I want to see how Tremont Morris-Brash is in year 2.
Your guy.
And if we're playing this starter game specifically, he should be getting a lot more opportunities through these first few preseason games. I think that he and Kyle Kennard have a lot of the similarities as far as their speed, their ability to get after the quarterback. And I was excited for when we ended up taking him as an undrafted free agent last year, and I was excited what he did with the preseason. He had a nice closeout to the final preseason game last year. So I'm excited to see what he's capable of in year 2.
RJ Mickens in the chat.
There's a lot of names. There's a lot of names.
And you know what though? Like that's what's exciting is like you started to believe in the front office and like the scouts and Joe Ortiz bringing in these guys, and you starting to see like proven production from some of the players drafted in year 1. Starting to see those names kind of stand out as either as year 2 players or second year on the team, second year of Joe Ortiz drafting players, and some of the praise that this rookie class has gotten. Some of the UDFAs. And you have a deep team. Finally. Are they perfect? No. But Chargers fans have been begging for this depth for years.
We've come a long way from having to root for Michael Bandy to be the preseason darling that we were all pulling for a few years back. We've come a long way. And to Dan's point, it feels good.
Boy, does it feel good. Chargers, there's one in here that was saying that Chargers are now, I don't know if this is true, but I'm going to trust you, Robert. The NFL's third youngest team. A lot of room to grow. Is that true?
I haven't heard this statement, but just kind of going through, I mean, what, Khalil and what, Josh Norris, probably
Josh Harris,
excuse me.
Yep.
They're probably the elder statesmen of this team.
Yep.
I mean, look what you've done.
Perriman's up there, but like so many young players are contributing.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me considering how they have built through the draft and free agency over the last 2 years.
Steve Klotz brought in as a name to watch. That's a fan favorite. Curious how the whole Scott Matlock. I mean, he's probably a practice squad guy, but yeah, it'll be fun to watch during training camp for sure. Jake, there's someone that's commenting here. I don't know where it is, but there's someone that says they're going to name their kid Jake, boy or girl.
I saw this.
But now they're going to name him Oronde.
It's a much better name than mine. So I would say, please name it Oronde.
So is Triquez Bridges, by the way. And he's also coming up during training camp. Casey says, I want to see if Lance could take Heineke's job. I mean,
here's one thing that I'll say, since we're going to talk about the backup quarterbacks for a second. We came on this show last preseason, and when everybody was talking about, and Dan and I included, about Brennan Rice. Where was Brennan Rice during the preseason game? Well, it wasn't so much Brennan Rice during the preseason. It was the quarterbacks that were throwing him the ball, or in his case, unable to get him the ball.
Not throwing the ball.
So I will say this as far as the collective of the receivers and tight ends out there. I believe that you're going to have better quarterback depth in terms of performances. I think the floor of the backup quarterback room has been raised a little bit.
You'll have better assessments of the receivers.
So you shouldn't be seeing certain guys disappear because of bad quarterback play. Hopefully that does not happen again.
I hope not. Jake, do you care about wins and losses of preseason?
No. Obviously, is it nice to win? Yes, but hey, sometimes the Raiders go undefeated in preseason, and then you know what they do during the rest of the season. In the win-loss column, it really doesn't matter. Yes, of course you want to see a win. There's no doubt about that. You always prefer to win than you do lose. But this is more of evaluation time. If it comes up to where the Chargers are literally go 0-4 in the preseason, like, okay, you wish it could have been better. Now go back and you look at that and start looking at the consistencies. If the Chargers are going 0-4 in training camp, you should be able to pinpoint pretty well in terms of what that 53-man roster is ultimately going to look like if that ends up happening. It should be easier. If the Chargers go 4-0,
man,
just put the blindfold on me and let me start throwing darts at a depth chart, because I mean, hey, I'll take that second option rather than the first option. Trust me. It's a lot more fun and entertaining when you have literally the second and the third team guys battling it out and making it competitive. But hey, man, it's the NFL. There's 31 other teams and a number of other guys that are on those second and third teams that are playing for roster spots as well. It's competition at the end of the day. You got to love it.
Yeah, I think something else that might be a little under the radar, or at least it's not being talked about that much, but just looking at kind of the addition of Mekhi Becton, right? And then they bring in Amari Hampton, they bring in Najee Harris. Rocket Sanders kind of fits that bill too. Joe Alt beefed up. Jamari Sawyer's cut physically, not up from the team. You hear a lot about this Chargers team from the staff, from the players, talk about like imposing their will, right? And going medieval with the type of brute force and pushing other teams backwards, right? And imposing their will on the will of other people, right? And there's something very gratifying about forcing another grown-ass man to be unable to do what they're trying to do. But for the most part, last season, we did not see that, especially in the run game. From blocking or from the running back, aside from a few splash plays from J.K. Dobbins. And again, no disrespect to J.K. Like, he was great, but I wouldn't necessarily say there was consistency. It felt like there was a lot of boom or bust. Not blaming him. That's just kind of what it felt like. Will we see Justin Herbert? Don't know, don't care, honestly. I'd probably rather not. I just don't want to risk anything. But the running game, I think, is something that can translate in terms of stylistically, right? Like, what style of run game will this Chargers team have this year with an Omari Hampton and a Najee Harris as your bell cows? Like, that's a very different dynamic than what the Chargers team has had over the past several years. I mean, you can kind of say Melvin Gordon was that, but I don't really think so. I think Omari Hampton is a different type of physicality. J.K. Dobbins wasn't that. Gus Edwards was kind of that. Not explosive, but didn't really play much. This is more like a brute force bully ball. And to see what the offensive line can do and how the running backs can do behind them, like, that's a storyline that can translate from preseason to regular season. And we haven't really seen much aside from notes that we've heard from reporters during training camp.
Remember, Dan, before J.K. Dobbins was signed to the Broncos, you remember what the running back room looked like then? It's amazing one year to the next. You go from J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Kamani Vidal, and Hassan Haskins to, at one point in time, you had J.K. Dobbins, Najee Harris, Omari and Hampton, Rocket Sanders, and Kamani Vidal. I mean, we're still right now talking about who's going to be the odd man out at the running back spot, because it's going to be that tough of a competition. I think what Greg Roman was trying to get last year out of his running game in many different facets didn't end up coming to fruition. I thought he was going to be more multiple with the running backs that he used rather than primarily for J.K. Dobbins up until the point where he got hurt. And again, I would have loved to have seen J.K. Dobbins back with this team. I thought that he earned a second contract. And again, I loved what he came in with, especially just coming off of an injury to this team, and what he brought to that running game is one of the few bright spots to the offense. But you look at it now, Dan, and I think this is the stable that Greg Roman was looking for last year. Because that 4-game stretch when J.K. Dobbins went down, you didn't get that step up from Gus Edwards. You didn't get that step up from Kamani Vidal last year. You actually got some interesting and nice flashes from Hassan Haskins when all of a sudden he got rotated into the rotation.
For third ones.
Which was nice to see. Hey, great. But in terms of building that stable and making it a mixture of a running back group that you can throw at defenses with different traits, with different paces, so that they really do not know what's coming at them, this is what Greg Roman was looking for last year. This is 2.0 version with this stable.
Yeah, and it translates, or at least in theory, right? Mighty with the $5 donation. Money talks, man. We've said it from jump. $5 donation. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Of every offseason in the last 10 to 15 years, doesn't it just feel different this time? Like, honestly, I'm truly fired up. I don't know what it is, but it is with a bunch of lightning bolts. Why, Jake? Why do you think it is?
Well, last year it was obviously Jim Harbaugh coming to the team. We all know where we were when that news broke. We all remember how hyped we were coming into that season, because from the moment that he set foot on the podium getting introduced as the new Chargers head coach, it felt different. He hadn't even put his coaching group together yet. We hadn't seen him on the field for a practice. We hadn't seen him in a regular season game. And from that moment, it felt different. That's something that transcends. Now, you've gotten a year under the belt now with Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz. And I'm going to be honest with you, Dan. It feels different now, not necessarily because of Jim Harbaugh, because he definitely does affect it. And you know the competitive mentality that he brings to the team is still going to be there. But holy shit, when you have a
GM
competent front office that knows what they're doing and drafts like it, yeah, it definitely feels different.
And so I was going to ask you, which one do you feel like is more impactful between Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz? Because like they impact the team in different ways. Some similar, but some very different. One is more like roster construction. One is more about team mentality. And one hand washes the other. So it might be an unfair question, but I don't necessarily know if I expected to see this much of like an immediate impact expressed by a GM in 2 not even full seasons. You look at how this roster was constructed prior to them stepping in and all the decisions they had to do that first offseason. Remember the Mike Williams, the Keenan Allen, Gerald Everett, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. Austin Eckler. To where they are now, like roster and identity wise, they are so different. They're just so different. And I don't know, man. I love them both, but I think we just saw so much incompetence. It's hard. We saw so much incompetence from both sides for a long time. I don't know. So I think that's why it's exciting, is because I think this fan base trusts its staff and they trust the coach to get this team in a position to win. And now they actually have, it feels like, a roster that can do what they're trying to do. Right? You're trying to play bully ball with J.K. Dobbins. It's hard to do. Trying to play bully ball when you've got Trey Pipkins, who doesn't really playing guard, and Bozeman and Johnson aren't really playing great. You can't run to the right ever.
To your point on that, Dan, just look at the draft class that you have from this year. And you go down and you read the names Omarion Hampton, Trey Harris, Aronde Gadsden, and KLS. That's 4 guys on offense that could immediately step up and be impact players for your team.
Say the names again.
Omarion Hampton, Trey Harris, Aronde Gadsden, and KLS.
I'd be shocked if they didn't.
That's 4 guys in one draft on the offensive side of the ball that could immediately step up to be impact players for your team. Now,
alone, just on.
That's indicative considering the fact, the lack thereof, of the playmakers that were on that side of the ball last year. But think about getting that in one draft alone. Just think about that for a second. I didn't mention the name Kyle Kennard, even though I think that he can come in and be a great third down pass rusher. I didn't mention the name RJ Mickens either, who is going to bring some competition for that safety spot. But look at those. It's rare enough that you have a situation like last year where the Chargers hit with Joe Alt and Ladd McConkey to see how good they were in their rookie seasons. And now you've got 4 names that could potentially come in for starter snaps in one draft.
Yeah.
Think about the possibilities if that actually ends up coming to fruition. Just for a second.
Jake, apparently my voice tone is weird. How do you like my voice tone?
Apparently, I've known you for going on 6 years, so it doesn't bother me.
Jorge says your text tone is weird. Robert says if they can block and give Herbert some time this year, should be fun. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Imagine the euphoria of a perfectly protected Justin Herbert.
I haven't heard
play
you
action.
say that one in a while.
Jeremy asks, "What does it say on your hat, Jake? What's your hat say?"
This is Grit Avenue. Welcome to Paradise, Grit Avenue. If you guys have not checked out Grit Avenue, just in general, as far as their clothing line or their hats, They're terrific. I've got 3 hats from Grit Avenue. They're some of my favorites. I would highly recommend them if you guys are into that sort of thing.
Great. Okay.
Grit Avenue.
Sponsored by Chargers.
Yes.
Currently sponsored by Grit.
Shameless plug from Chargers Unleashed.
No, and mine is from the Oceanside Harbor. I think it just says Oceanside something established, endless summer something. Down there all the time. Shout out to Harbor Fish and Chips. Literally the best. Let's see. Someone had said Ortiz is great, but honestly, Harbaugh. And yeah, it's hard to trump this. Only reason is because Harbaugh brings the entire staff with him. And so far, they've been excellent. Like, there's like a trickle-down effect, right? Like, Joe Ortiz probably wouldn't even be here if Jim Harbaugh wasn't brought in.
Yeah.
So,
and I will say that when it comes to free agency decisions, or more importantly, when it comes to the draft, I mean, that decision does not rely on one single person. We're done with those days of the GM making those decisions on his own. We know what took place. We don't want that no more. So,
Dewey.
Batman, Robin, Robin, Batman, they're washing each other's hands in there. Yeah.
They're
washing each other's hands. You know what I mean? One hand scratches the other's back.
Oh, Lord. We got about 10 minutes left on
Happy Sunday, everybody.
Emphasis on the happy. Speaking of happy, Jake, real quick. Happy Gilmore, too. Folks, the chat. Oh, you didn't like it? I got about 20 minutes in. It's a little struggle getting some time in for movies in this household these days, but not a fan? Hope for more? I don't think it matters how good it was. I'm not going to watch Anchorman because it's like a great film production.
I know that, but it's like, I remember when, Beverly Hills Cop 4 was announced for Netflix, and I was skittish on that, even being like, okay, Eddie Murphy's comeback. Like, I still felt like that deserved like a theatrical release. And even that, yes, it wasn't the best out of the 4. I'd still probably rank it as like the 3rd best of the series, but it was better actually than what I expected. Now, I didn't go into Happy Gilmore 2 expecting the world, all things considered, with the original, but I just felt that the overload of cameos and their version of trying to recycle the jokes from the first one, it just didn't hit for me.
Again.
And then the last, 15 minutes of the last tournament, I just didn't feel it. I didn't feel it. I don't know. I don't knock anybody that enjoyed it, but I'm just going to say this in general about comedy movies. And I'm hoping that The Naked Gun is the catalyst for this. We just need good comedies back. That's all I'm going to say, because it's been way too long since there has been a good comedy.
Don't make this political, but I'll say make comedy great again. Please. Let's see. Darius Davis starting to improve his route running. Yeah, I like it. Jake, we got about 10 minutes left, so we can try to do rapid fire here for the last 10 minutes or so. If you have any questions or comments, put them in there. We'll try to do as best as we can to fly through these so we get all of your takes and thoughts and questions in here. Brian, friend of the show. Hey, Brian. Branson Taylor. I think he's good. I can feel it. Do you think he gets a shot? He'll get a shot preseason. I'll tell you that much.
Right now, I could hear Brian U2 in my head trying to break down the Branson Taylor pick to me. It's like, well, he can block.
Got big hands.
He can run. He's got big hands. I can totally hear Brian U2 in my ear right now telling me that.
Honestly, the story of the Trey McKinney draft selection will go down in infamy. It's so good. Oh, that's a topic for another day. Jake, Robert says if Colson can hit this year, we'd have 4 rookies hit in last year's draft. I mean,
there you go.
That's another name to look for during preseason, by the way. We know Deion Henley, right? Like, that glow up is real. We've talked about it, dude. If Junior Colson can be who we thought he would be, who the staff thinks he would be, who the staff has seen him be at Michigan, watch out, man. Watch out. Edsky Munoz, probably butchered that. Apologies. Herbert needs to take off when shit breaks down. Agreed. Herbert also needs to be healthy in order to do that. So I hope he gets healthy, because he will. Let's see. What else do we got here? What am I missing, Jake?
Oh, where is it? Sorry. I did tease it in the last show, Dan.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I did tease it in the last show. We're all super excited about, obviously, the Philip Rivers story. And good God, I don't know how many. I think I watched that video of his at least 7 times.
Chills.
That's just the type of emotion that Philip Rivers gives you. And it brings back just so many vibes and memories as he talks about throughout that video. For me, I always kind of go off. I kind of always revert back to, I can't remember which playoff game it was, but when he had everybody in the locker room and just says like, "Hey, I got something for you," and quiets everybody down. It's like, it's new. And then the Chargers are alive and everybody just erupts. Like, there was just so much emotion that came from him. And
Jay Cutler feud was so good.
Yeah. Oh God, it's just legendary stuff for a guy who just was the most PG shit talker that was out there. it was so good.
Sorry,
it was so good. But I will tell my favorite Philip Rivers story. This goes back to my first training camp that I ever got the privilege to cover. I was shadowing Mr. Eric Williams, and again, this was right when they were still, of course, in San Diego. This was 2013. This was the first year, if memory serves correct, that Mike McCoy was the head coach of the football team. And so we're out on the field. And of course, at this point in time, I'm just excited that I'm on the other side of the fence and, wide-eyed, just watching everybody out there on the practice field. And now it comes to the point where practice is wrapping up and we're going over for the press conferences. Now, on this particular day, the schedule for the press conferences was Mike McCoy first. Philip Rivers was scheduled to go second. So we all go over to where the press conference area is. Mike McCoy says his thing, talks about how practice went, leaves. Then one of the Charger staff just comes up and says, Philip's going to be, just a few more minutes. If you guys want to wait, go ahead. If not, we'll let you know when he comes back to the podium. So it ends up being like 5 to 7 minutes. And they come over and they say, it's like, he's going to be a little bit longer. Why don't you guys just, go? We'll call you guys back later. It's like, all right, cool. So we go around, we start, talking to other players. This was DJ Fluker's first year, who's just had the happiest look on his face for being there as a rookie. Probably gave me the biggest handshake that I've ever gotten from anybody as possible. So it's, just his hand completely engulfs mine when I got a chance to introduce him. King Dunlap is the biggest human being that I've ever seen in my life at this point in time. He had his head down, pouring some water over his head, and myself and Eric Williams came up to him. We said, "Hey, King, can we ask you a couple questions?" And as soon as he does that, he just lifts his head up like this, and we're just like, "Jeez, this man is huge." So eventually, look at the clock, and it's 45 minutes now after practice is over. Philip Rivers hasn't come back. No one's heard a word from him. But where is Philip Rivers? I don't know if it was from his kids or if it was from just a local youth group. But there was a group of nuns that brought a children's youth group to practice this day. Philip's on the field with these nuns, tossing the football back and forth with them.
Yes.
Tossing the football back and forth with these kids. Again, so he's occupied still doing that. We're going around interviewing some other players. It's now an hour and a half after practice has ended. Philip's walking everybody to the bus, saying goodbye to every single one of them, thanking them for coming to practice and just totally making their day.
Absolutely incredible.
It wasn't until an hour and a half after practice that Philip finally came back to the podium to where we were able to talk with him. And it's moments like that that you never get to see, especially if we're just talking about team or fans of teams that don't know anything about the Chargers or Philip Rivers off the field. And for everybody who wanted to slam him as far as being a shit talker or a crybaby or however they wanted to perceive it, it's those type of stories that just were the little things about Philip Rivers, just as him as a human being, not a player, that just made him great. Off the field, he was awesome. And to see something like that, to where for that hour and a half, football didn't matter. It was about making their day. And I think he wanted to do that for every single fan that came out to watch him play.
Yeah, no one can argue that he cared because that dude left it on the field literally every week. Shout out Shout out to the GOAT, man. I love Phillip Rivers. I'd ride with him every day. Jake, we're at time here. We got a couple minutes left. Jorge was wrong, by the way. He called it. He thought Phillip Rivers was going to sign your chest. Didn't happen.
No, not quite. Not quite.
Didn't happen.
Not quite.
A lot of people didn't like Happy Gilmore, apparently. Mighty's asking questions about the almighty woodchuck. We're going to have to leave that one on red. Sorry.
It's a great way to present the rhyme, though. Hypothetically, there's a woodchuck. And hypothetically, he said woodchuck. But if he did woodchuck, how much woodchuck would this guy possibly chuck?
NFL Mike is in the chat. Let's go. Ortiz, the man, protecting our greatest asset and sharpening the spear all at once. Jake, it is 6:44 on a Sunday night, and we've had almost 800 folks in this live chat. This is crazy. Chargers fans are so hungry for football. And thankfully for you all, you get Chargers football in 4 days? Amazing. Jake and I will be covering this week. We'll go through that game. We'll go through what to look for. We talked about it a little bit today, but we'll talk about it more later. Can Justin Herbert match Phillip Rivers' playoff magic? We hope to see.
You hope to see it, and hopefully it starts this year.
Christopher, shout out to Dan's t-shirt today. Look, we can't all be heroes, but I can wear this shirt. Mighty. Thanks, Jake. My kind of guy. I think that was appreciation for the story. Jake's got a lot of stories like that, honestly. There's a couple of them he's told me that I'm like, I don't think we could talk about these on the show. Sorry. Jorge, it's July, bro. It is July.
It's July. It's almost August, though.
Dude, it's 800 people here, and it's July.
I remember when it was May, and May sucked because nothing was going on. I remember it was June. And the only things that we could talk about at the time was the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I remember my first beer. Look, all you folks in the chat, go home or go do whatever you need to do. Have some dinner, drink a brewski, go have some fun with your family. Enjoy the rest of the evening and the weekend. Chargers got football. My shirt gives Jorge hope. Put that on a bumper sticker.
I mean, Dan, everybody can hear your shirt, all right? So I'm sure it gives a lot of people hope.
They don't like the tone of my shirt either, apparently. James Wagner, take care. God bless everyone. Jake, any last words before we hop on out of here for the evening?
Man, again, to the preseason naysayers out there who don't believe in preseason, just allow me to say, I don't care. Just like the combine, I don't care. Football just needs to be back on all of our television screens, and specifically Chargers football for the upcoming Hall of Fame game. Am I hyping up a preseason game? Yes.
Damn right we are.
I don't care.
Thank you.
Let's get football back.
That's why we're here. For Jake Hefner, you can find him at Jake D. Hefner, myself at Dan W. Sports. This is Chargers Unleashed, and we'll talk to you next time. Enjoy the weekend. See you on the other side.